Let's bring you some breaking news that has come to us in the last minute or so from Buckingham Palace. His Majesty the King has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. This statement coming into us in the last 10 or so seconds from Buckingham Palace. And I'm going to read to you exactly what this statement says. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has, to date, provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So just to repeat this breaking news, His Majesty the King has initiated a formal notice, a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. Let's cross live now to our royal correspondent, Helena Wilkinson, who is on the phone live with us from Windsor. And Helena, just explain to us, if you can, what has brought us to this point.
Well, there has been, Mariam, over a number of weeks, we've seen continued scrutiny and continued allegations around Prince Andrew and his links to the sex offender Giuffre Epstein allegations, which he continues to deny those allegations. Well, this evening, an incredibly significant development in this story, that statement that you read from Buckingham Palace in the last couple of moments that we have had into us. Just repeat the main part of that statement. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. If we rewind a week or so ago, you'll recall that statement that came via Buckingham Palace that was from Prince Andrew, where he said he was voluntarily giving up his titles, the Duke of York and the other honours that had been conferred upon him. He said at the time that was because it was a distraction. The allegations that were continuing against him were a distraction to the work of the King and other members of the royal family. But this evening, that statement from Buckingham Palace, a very significant statement, firstly, that the King has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. So up until now, Prince Andrew had voluntarily given up those titles and the honours, but it meant that they were sitting dormant. But it's now clear from that statement this evening that the King has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. The other part of the statement, which is of course significant, is that Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And also, significant development in this story that's been ongoing for the last couple of weeks, the scrutiny, intense scrutiny around the Prince Andrew issue, is that the statement also from Buckingham Palace reads tonight that the lease on Royal Lodge, that is the 30-room mansion where Prince Andrew has lived for more than 20 years. The statement says that has to date provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. But this evening, the palace has said that formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. What we don't know, well, there are many unanswered questions still this evening, but what we don't know is where that accommodation is. That hasn't been released in the statement this evening. But again, over the last couple of weeks, and with further allegations around Prince Andrew, his links to the sex offender Giuffre Epstein, there has been intense scrutiny on his living arrangements. He lives in Royal Lodge, which is a huge property, 30-room property, within Windsor Great Park. It's about 3 miles or so from Windsor Castle. He had a lease on that property, but there were questions about that lease agreement, and it emerged in the last couple of weeks that Prince Andrew was paying a peppercorn rent. That's because he paid up a huge amount of money up front, but it meant that he wasn't paying any rent or a peppercorn rent over the years that he has lived there. There has been intense pressure for him to move out of that property. The palace will have been well aware of the optics of all of this, of how it looks to have Prince Andrew living in such a vast property. The negotiations for him to move out will not have been easy, but the palace will have been well aware of the mood music, and they are or have been trying to manage what is a personal family crisis and also a public one. The negotiations to get Prince Andrew to leave that property, they will have been led by the King. Prince William will have made his views clear, but clearly the palace will have come to the conclusion that for Prince Andrew to continue living in that sprawling property, Royal Lodge, in Windsor Great Park was clearly unsustainable. So significant developments this evening in that statement from Buckingham Palace. The headlines are that His Majesty the King has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. He will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and also his lease. He has been asked also to surrender his lease on the property, the Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. After a couple of weeks of intense scrutiny on Prince Andrew, this almost feels inevitable. It was a matter of really when and not if this would happen, but that significant development as well, that the King initiating that formal process to remove the styles, titles and honours of Prince Andrew.
And Helena, part of that statement as well, which you have now read from, also says, and this is how the statement ends, Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. A very telling end to that formal statement.
Yes, and the statement also says that the developments or what Buckingham Palace is announcing this evening, the statement says that is deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that Prince Andrew continues to deny the allegations against him. But you're right that those last words in that statement are telling, that both the King and the Queen wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. And you look back to the statement that Prince Andrew released a couple of weeks or so ago, when he said he was going to no longer use his titles, no longer use the honours that were conferred upon him. In that statement, he said he vigorously denied the allegations. There wasn't any mention in that statement about any thoughts and sympathies with any victims and survivors. So a statement which has those last words by both the King and the Queen, but Prince Andrew in that statement from the palace as well, he continues tonight to deny the allegations against him.
Helena, we've just had another bit of information coming into us, and that is that it's understood that Prince Andrew will move to a property on the private Sandringham estate in Norfolk, and it will be privately funded by the King. What more do we know about this?
Yeah, so that's what the latest details that we have had. We don't know whereabouts on the Sandringham estate that Prince Andrew might move to. Of course, it is privately owned by the monarch. We know that there is a cottage on that estate called Wood Farm, the estate in Norfolk. That cottage, it's got strong associations with Prince Andrew's parents. His father, the late Duke of Edinburgh, chose that secluded property as his permanent home when he retired from public life in 2017. That's Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, but we haven't tonight yet had any details about whether that is where Prince Andrew will move to. There have been, of course, many questions over the past couple of weeks about the peppercorn rent that Prince Andrew has been paying at the Royal Lodge. We heard yesterday from the Public Accounts Committee, the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, that they had written to the Crown Estate, which manages Royal Lodge, asking whether Prince Andrew continuing to live in that property was value for money. So a lot of questions posed by the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee to the Crown Estate. That letter was released yesterday, and they will be expecting answers to that. But in terms of where exactly on the Sandringham estate Prince Andrew will move to, that we don't know at this stage, but it's been described as Prince Andrew moving, or he will move to alternative private accommodation. So out of Royal Lodge, out of the idyllic surroundings of Windsor Great Park, the 30-room mansion which he does live in at the moment, and he will be moving to alternative private accommodation.
Helena, thank you very much. So let's just repeat that statement that was issued by Buckingham Palace in the last 14 minutes or so, and that is that His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. It goes on to say Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has to date provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So just to reiterate, Prince Andrew is losing his title of Prince. He is leaving his Windsor mansion, Royal Lodge, and we understand that he's going to be moving to the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, where his accommodation will be privately funded by the King. Well, in the studio with me now is our UK correspondent, Adina Campbell, who is across the story. And Adina, clearly the pressure clearly has been mounting on the King over the last few weeks.
It has, and this was a question of when, not if. The pressure has been building for many weeks. We understand that negotiations have been going on for some time behind closed doors between Prince Andrew and the royal family. But we now know in the last few minutes that Prince Andrew, the royal family has now decided to remove the style, the titles. He will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and he is going to surrender the lease at the Royal Lodge, this huge mansion, 30-room mansion. Clearly, this is a blow for Prince Andrew. This is a major fall from grace, but considering his links to his friend, Giuffre Epstein, who was, of course, a convicted sex offender before he took his own life, this was something that many people thought would happen at some point. Of course, it's important to make clear that Prince Andrew denies all of the allegations against him. But this will be a personal blow. This will be deeply humiliating for Prince Andrew. And also this is embarrassing for the royal family. You know, this is something they did not want. This has been a distraction for a long, long time. And of course, we had the book recently by one of the victims, Virginia Giuffre, released just a few weeks ago, which had more revelations about Prince Andrew's links to the convicted sex offender Giuffre Epstein, some of the harrowing, distressing details those victims went through. And I think this has been a sore topic for a long time, not just for the victims, but also for the entire royal family. And I think the palace have been aware of the mood music for some time. These negotiations would not have been easy. It's likely they've been going on for a number of weeks. But legally, we know that he did not have to leave Royal Lodge. That was something that, you know, we know that he had this 75-year lease that started back in 2003. And we know that Prince Andrew had paid a large amount of money up front for those renovations. So in effect, there was no rent liability. But there has been this increased focus on the Prince over his links with the late sex offender Giuffre Epstein. The Prince, of course, has always denied any wrongdoing, but we now know this statement in the last few minutes has happened.
Adina, thank you very much for that update.